Hey everyone, this is Seth with Food Challenge News. Welcome back to another podcast interview. Today I'm talking with Dan Killer Kennedy. How are you doing today, Dan?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So, what have you been up to recently, and are there any exciting updates in the world of Killer Kennedy?
I mean, not a whole lot competitive eating wise. Season's really just starting on the independent side. Unlike Major League Eating, we don't have 30 contests a month, so a little bit more selective, a little bit more time in between contests. So, got a busy July coming up as far as competitive eating. So, and then outside of competitive eating, just working and run a full time body shop and do some rental properties. So that keeps us pretty busy.
Yeah, we were just talking. You actually got back from Philly as well. Did you want to describe anything about that? Like how that experience was?
Me and Molly did for Delco Steaks. I've won the Delco Cheesesteak Bowl contest 5 years in a row. I'm the 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 cheesesteak eating champion of the world. And we were invited down there to do a little bit of a exhibition for a boxing match weigh-in that they're having tonight in Philly. So we went down there and did a 5 minute little contest to have some fun.
How did that go? Was it pretty exciting?
Yeah, I mean, crowd was decent. It's kind of like anything. It's most of the people were there for the boxing event, so the competitive eating portion of it, is kind of irrelevant to them. So that it doesn't appeal to the masses like you would hope it would. So I feel like competitive eating is still a very niche sport. And I always do refer to it as a sport because it has all the elements, and by definition is a sport. It has training, it has competition, it has risk, it has reward, so by all definition, it is a sport.
So, what originally sparked your interest in food challenges and competitive eating? Was there a thought or moment that made you say, I'm ready to dive in?
I actually watched Man vs. Food when I was in my early 20s, when that was really popular on TV, and that kind of sparked my interest. Like, I'm a bigger guy at the time. I was 350 at my highest. I was 400 pounds. Um, and always liked food shows, always liked Man versus Food. I thought, I could eat a lot. I bet you I could do a food challenge. But back then, food challenges were very obscure, and it wasn't until 2015, and I had actually lost uh, over 215 pounds. I was actually down to about 185, and my buddy Joe, that was a personal trainer and one of the guys that really was motivating me to lose the weight, he said we should go celebrate with a food challenge. And we went up to the Du Bois Diner at the time, and I did a big, huge 4 pound omelet in, like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something. And I thought, hey, I still got a pretty good appetite. So kind of just snowballed from there. I found other local challenges, and kind of started doing one, like, every other weekend, and was having a little bit of fun with it. And then, of course, the rest is history.
So, it's fair to say you got hooked on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like anything in the world. It's a very addictive type kind of sport. I feel like once you get into it, it's hard to get out because you love the allure of the competition and finishing things. Like, especially the stuff that people say, oh, nobody can do this, it's impossible. And you really want to set out to try to prove people wrong.
You're actually known for doubling and, correct me if I'm wrong, I think even tripling some of your challenges, right?
Yeah, we kind of started that. That's really a Molly thing. She kind of would go into a challenge, and she's like, "Oh, it's a 4 pound burger. What's the challenge in it if you know you can finish it?" And she's the one. I think she's really the one that originated doubling and tripling stuff. And of course, traveling with her, for the last how many years, and things of that nature, spending a lot of time together. It kind of was like, oh, I guess we're doing two. I guess we're doing three. And then it kind of became like an inside joke to us. So, so 2 and 3, I mean, it's kind of one of the things like, make it a challenge. If it's not really a challenge, make it a challenge. Try to push yourself. Try to, I guess raise the bar for, future people that go in there and say, oh, well, yeah, somebody did the food challenge, but then we've also had people do two of them, or we've had people do three of them, or, so it's not for everybody, but if you truly want to challenge yourself and actually make it a challenge, you have to be willing to do those kind of things.
When you and Molly double or even triple a challenge, what's the reaction of the restaurant? Like, you can't order two, or are they usually pretty available?
They will let us do it. Most of them will. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, you have to pay for the second one regardless," or they'll do one of these things. They're like, "Oh no, you can't do that because nobody can even finish one." Or they'll do the, "Well, if you finish one, we'll bring you another one out." Or they're very pessimistic of it. They don't think that it's even possible. A lot of the times when we go into a place, they'll say, "Oh, we know who you guys are. You probably want to do two of these. You probably want to do three. Our challenge isn't nothing." So.
And your audience knows you as Killer, but how did you earn that nickname, and why has it stuck with you all these years?
The Killer Kennedy moniker really it dates back to my weight loss journey. One of the gentlemen that was in the weight loss group that I was in, Todd Hainsey, he used to call me the Fat Killer because I was always losing the most percentages of weights. We actually had a contest on Facebook with like 60 people, and it was a weekly weigh-in, and you were trying to win the $50 gift card to Best Buy at the end of this whole thing, and I ended up losing the most weight out of all the people in that group. So he used to call me, he's like, he's just killing the fat. He's the killer. He's the Killer Kennedy, and kind of when I started eating, I ate with such a ferocity that people I was always killing food challenges, and I would tear into the food, and that moniker kind of stayed. Now, as of late, I've tried to transition in, not necessarily losing the moniker, but I think that over the years I've realized, and it's been mentioned to me multiple times, that I think the Killer moniker actually has hurt me on YouTube a lot. As far as search and algorithm and things of that nature, of course, nobody understands the algorithm on YouTube, but I've kind of transitioned into the Dan Kennedy Eats on there, which is a generic term. I get it, but I'll always be known as Killer Kennedy in the eating community. And but as far as the name, I try to bounce it back and forth. I still mix it in there, so that's the origin story for that.
So let's fast forward to some of your challenges. You're known for dominating massive at-home challenges, many of which you prep yourself. Can you share a story of when one of those challenges just didn't go as planned and you had to adapt on the fly?
Yeah, I can actually think of one very, very specific one. Giant Foods episode, which I'm actually the creator of the Giant Food series, and people really like that. And I've been so busy in my personal life lately that I haven't had a chance to really film any of those within like the last year or year and a half. 25,000 subscriber special I did on YouTube. My good buddy Andy Poole, which everybody knows as the Iceman, when he was competitive eating, he used to come, help me with all the Giant Foods episodes. We were actually cooking that 25 item breakfast, and I actually burnt the bacon. I mean, it was oh man, it was so hard. It was like charcoal. It was so bad. That and the sausage, had to adapt on the fly. I mean, I basically was eating just absolutely burnt pieces of bacon. It was the most awful tasting thing. And of course, throughout the video, Andy's making fun of how burnt it was, and so that was one of those things where you had to learn to adapt, so there have definitely been some cases where it hasn't quite turned out the way I thought it should.
How did it smell in there with all that burnt bacon?
Luckily, I did it outside on my flat top, so it wasn't actually in the house, so that was a good thing.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it worked out, but also kind of not with having to eat all that burnt bacon. But you still killed it off, so.
No, yeah, we did. So we powered through it, yep.
And you've taken on some other impressive challenges, including 109 Kit Kat bars eaten. You've chugged 20 pounds of SpaghettiOs. You've eaten 48 McChickens, and you even crushed 51 apple pies in 10 minutes. How did you build your capacity to take on challenges like these, and what were some of the struggles you faced along the way?
I would say the capacity is a progressive thing. It's kind of like bodybuilding in the regards of it doesn't happen overnight. It takes many, many years of dedication and training to get to that sort of level. And I feel like everybody's technique is going to be different. I'm approached all the time online, with people that want to get into competitive eating, and they'll say, "Oh well, we teach us your technique, or what do you do to train?" And I'm not trying to be snubbed when I say it. I say, well, what I do is what I do, and I just don't share those techniques only because what I do might not work for somebody else, So it's kind of hard to really get into explaining, the training technique only because everybody's going to react to it differently. It's very similar to bodybuilding. One thing might work for one person and it may not work for another, So, but it's something that my training style, my techniques, I hold those near and dear to my heart, and I found something that worked for me. And I would say that the biggest struggle was just that. It was finding what worked best for me to build capacity. Because I know that there were times where I was stuck at a capacity for a long period of time. And I thought, well, maybe this is just my natural limit. I can't get any higher than this. And then all of a sudden you break through that barrier and you say, I finally, you could have been stuck at the same capacity for a year and I couldn't break through that mold, and then all of a sudden I started building again, and just really trying to find out what works for you,
Do you get asked a lot about your techniques, like in your personal life or just even online? Like, do you get a lot of messages for it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of younger guys that come into it, they obviously look up to the people that have been in it for the longest time. They look up at the people that have accomplished different things in the sport, and people try to approach you to try to get you to share your techniques or your secrets or your trades or whatever with them, and a lot of people just trying to get into it, they'll message you or they'll see at a contest and they'll come up to you and they'll want to talk to you about different things, and that's like I said, it's kind of like that's kind of one of those things. Your capacity and your speed training things it's kind of like an NFL playbook. You're not willing to share it with just anybody.
You're also known for your incredible eating speed. What are your steps to help prevent food from getting stuck in your throat, and how do you keep it all going down so quickly?
It's not really a secret per se, but large capacity obviously helps you out with speed eating only because you can use a lot of water, a lot of fluid, which aids in propelling the food down. That's kind of really that's the biggest underlying problem with people that want to try to speed eat, but they don't have the hand in hand. You have to have the capacity and the speed. If you don't have the capacity, you can't really ever gain the speed, like say in a contest where you need to eat 5 pounds fast, because to eat that food fast, you have to be able to say it's 5 pounds of food, which you might need to eat 15 pounds because you may need to use over a gallon of water to be able to get that down that fast. So that really goes hand in hand. You have to be able to have a little bit of both, Also, I feel like speed eating and swallowing large amounts is also a little bit genetic. I feel like some people have larger throats than others, So I could say I could probably, if I had to, I could probably swallow a McDonald's cheeseburger without chewing it. I don't know if I would want to, but I probably could.
I find that very impressive, actually.
Yeah, impressive, but yet might be a little bit disturbing too.
Yeah. Has there ever came a time to where you almost choked? Like whether you were trying to swallow something whole or just during a challenge?
Oh yes, many a times. Yeah, there were definitely a few contests where I thought, oh, I can't get this out. I'm about ready to throw up the sign, but then the biggest thing with that is staying calm and just use the water and start propelling the food. Just staying calm is the biggest thing. Get relaxed. If you actually go on YouTube and you watch my chronic taco contest from like 2018 or 2019, I think it was 18 actually, you'll actually see me in that video. I have a 30-second choke where I could not get the tacos out, and I think I still ate 120. It's one of those, oh crap moments. You're just like, uh-oh, this is it. What do I do? A little bit of panic sets in, but then you just, you regain your composure. That's the most important thing. You relax. And then, obviously there's paramedics on hand, but, you instinctively want to try to self-correct, but it definitely can be a scary scenario. But over the years, I've done it a handful of times, and so now I know the process, so it's not quite as bothersome now.
And the next challenge I'd like to talk to you about was uploaded February 14th, so Valentine's Day of 2020. It's the $70 lasagna challenge. In the thumbnail, you actually say cheese from other planets, and then I think you also mentioned canary and duck eggs, and you also mentioned how dense it is. So can you describe the experience of the $70 lasagna challenge?
The $70 lasagna that stems. My friend Rose and her husband Kyle and their children. They used to watch my channel all the time. They were, I've been friends with Rose for years, and she always brags about this lasagna she makes and how expensive it is. And it's only because she shops at all those like Whole Food stores. All natural, organic, clean eating, all this stuff. So the cheeses are really expensive. So obviously I was exaggerating in a lot of that stuff. The cheese wasn't from another planet. There wasn't duck eggs. There wasn't goose egg. It just, obviously I was just trying to be funny, but it was a very, very dense, thick, cheesy. I mean, it's one of them things where nothing likes to move for days, if you know what I'm getting at.
And I also remember, yeah, you said dense a couple times, and then it looked like it just kept regenerating. Is that how it felt when you were eating it?
It's one of them things you just keep eating, you keep eating, you keep eating, you look down and it's like, I don't even think it's almost like it's coming out and going back in the tray. You know what I'm saying? It just one of them scenarios where you're just eating, you eat, and you eat, and it doesn't seem like it ever goes down. It's like a food challenge with 5 pounds of fries. You feel like you've eaten fries for 20 minutes. You look down, and you feel like you're grabbing the same handful over and over again.
And now that we've discussed some of your challenges, let's talk about your involvement in eating contests, because you've been a part of many.
I think for me, competitive eating was natural only because growing up, I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And of course, which I consider the greatest era for professional wrestling that ever existed. Obviously, everybody has their opinion on that. I guess that depends on what generation you grow up in. But, that golden era of professional wrestling where the late 90s, where you had, the NWO and WCW and Monday Night Raw and all that stuff. So that initial, what I was always enamored by was like when the person's entrance music would hit and the guy would come out and the crowd would go crazy. That's always how I feel when I go out on stage at an eating contest, even though I know that's like crickets and there's nothing going on because people aren't cheering for me like that. But you kind of get in that mode where you're like, you feel like they stone cold coming through in the glass breaking, when you get up on stage because you're about to do something that you truly enjoy and entertain people, and it's that thrill of that excitement, So I think that was initially what I was drawn to when it came to contests. Just the stage and being in front of people and getting to showcase what I was good at. And then of course, obviously the allure of the money that can be made in contests. I mean, competitive eating has afforded us a lot of things. I mean, there's definitely a financial gain to it. There's that aspect also. Plus the people you meet. You definitely can't take away from the people and the fans and the camaraderie and things of that nature.
Has there ever been a time where you're up on stage eating and the crowd is chanting Dan and/or Killer?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely times where people get the cheers a Killer, but then they also, in the same regard, they want Molly to win because Molly's the little girl on stage that everybody wants to see take down the Giants. So, but as much as people think that there's like this like unspoken rivalry between us. We obviously have a mutual love for each other, and we don't really care what the outcome is. We're just up there to entertain, people and have some fun, and just show the world what we can do.
Yeah, there's a challenge with you and Molly. It's a pizza challenge, but I think both of you took it down in like 2 minutes and like 30 something seconds. And it was right in the restaurant, and it was a huge pizza too.
Yeah, that was in Ohio. The I want to say it was the Ruchi's. Trying to think what that place was called, but I do know which one you mean. Yeah, we actually walked into there and they're like, well, we actually no longer do that pizza challenge, and we're like, well, we traveled, 8 hours to get here to do it, because it said it was available on your website. And when we called the restaurant, they said that you guys were still doing it, and there was a little bit of a mix up, I guess one location was still offering it, but the other ones weren't. But we were at the and they're like, well, I'll tell you what, since you're here, we'll do it for you guys, blah, blah, blah. It was super awesome. And they like, that was during COVID, so there wasn't even any indoor dining, but they like set a table up for us. It was super cool.
Yeah, the pizza looked really tasty too. Was it pretty good?
Yeah, it was a thin, wet pizza. So yeah, definitely it was a fast pizza. Definitely would be a place I would go back and like sit down and actually enjoy one though.
When you're speed eating, as far as like pizza and like crust and that, like, does it ever like scratch your throat or the roof of your mouth, like when you're just killing it off?
Oh yeah, you definitely get some physical abuse from stuff like that, especially when you're dealing with thick crust or crunchy crust, or I like to call them saltine crust, which it tastes like you're eating saltines. But it definitely tears you up.
So you've taken home impressive prizes and money from winning various eating contests over the years. Do you have a favorite award or vacation or trophy that just really meant a lot to you?
I definitely have two outstanding accolades that I consider two of my favorite things. Two of my favorite things is number one, co-champions with Molly at Z Burger. Z Burger is probably one of my favorite contests. I really do love that contest. The people at Z Burger are great. I've done that for 10 years. I finished second more than anybody in the world at that contest, and I've obviously tied with Molly twice. And really, there's no better feeling than being able to co-champion with Molly because, I mean, let's face it, she's the GOAT. So And for many years, really, Molly went unrivaled. So to be able to get to a level where I could be right there with her on her heels, right behind her all the time, that's a great feeling. And then obviously, it's huge to be the 5-time cheesesteak bowl eating champion of the world, because nobody else in the world has done that. So to be a 5-peat champion at something where you've been unrivaled is obviously a huge accomplishment, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, they're very impressive accolades. And also, I wanted to ask, you and Molly meet before competitive eating, or did you meet from competitive eating?
From competitive eating, yep. Yeah, actually, the first time I ever talked to Molly was at Highway 55 when they used to have that down in North Carolina, and she actually, really, the only thing she said to me was that she hated my shirt. I was wearing a Peeps marshmallow shirt that said "Have your peeps call my peeps," and she's not a fan of novelty T-shirts, so she's like, "I hate your shirt," and she walked away.
And then you were friends for life after that.
Yep, haven't been apart since.
So, Dan, it's time for Would You Rather competitive eating edition. So, the first one, would you rather eat 10 pounds of nachos loaded with cheese and jalapenos in 20 minutes, or a 5-pound extra spicy burrito in 10 minutes, but you have to do it in front of a live audience?
I'm not really big on spicy stuff, but I'll tell you, I would rather do the burrito only because burritos are faster and it wouldn't rip my throat up.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about that pizza crust. I'm sure nachos, those might be brutal on the throat and mouth.
Yeah, and nachos are very hard to eat because they're crumbly and they fall apart, and that's a very, very hard food to eat.
And probably pretty messy too. I feel like you'd have to have extra napkins, right?
Oh yeah, you'd have to have like a spoon to pick up all your crumbs. Yep.
So the next one is, would you rather eat 10 cupcakes, each with a mystery filling, or a super spicy pizza topped with mystery hot peppers?
I'd have to go with the cupcakes only because I'm a sucker for sugar, so I'd have to go with the cupcakes on that one, even if there was some, like, I don't know, earthworms in the middle of them or something, I guess.
Would you still take it down if it was earthworms?
Absolutely. I mean, it's on the line. I can't step up to a challenge and not finish it.
I respect that dedication. So let's talk hobbies for a minute. So what do you like to do outside of competitive eating?
Really into cars. I mean, I've built a career on auto body and paint. I've been running my own business for about 25 years now, and so I'm into collecting older cars. I have a handful of Mustangs, and we have an F100, a '72 F100 pickup truck that we're getting ready to modify, and so cars keep me pretty busy. I also like construction, like carpentry, and like I said, we have rental properties and things like that. So I'm pretty busy with the remodels on those. So outside of that, and then just your average stuff, just hanging out and go to Dairy Queen and sit there and enjoy an ice cream cone every once in a while. Has to be cherry dipped though. Has to be cherry dipped.
I've never tried the cherry dipped. I think I've only tried the chocolate dipped. So does it hit different, the cherry dipped?
You have not lived until you eat the cherry dip. A lot of people think it tastes like plastic. I think it tastes like deliciousness. But that's just me.
Also, some people have said plastic. That's interesting.
Yeah, they say it tastes like plastic, but I say, nah, it's delicious. I actually, I joked around. I was actually telling Molly, I said, I actually found an industrial sized can of cherry dip, and I joked with her. I said, maybe I'll do this series on YouTube, Will It Cherry Dip, and it's where I buy like a Big Mac and I cherry dip it, and then I taste it and see how it tastes.
That'd be a very interesting series.
Yeah, it would be. I don't know if people would watch it, but it was funny in my mind, so.
And I also wanted to ask real quick, it kind of goes back to challenges, but have you ever been at a restaurant and you're just killing it off and you just kind of read the room, and then has anyone just ever had this, like, the most shocked look on their face? Like they just can't believe that you can kill off food like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we get that all the time, especially when you travel with Molly. She's, obviously this little petite 110-pound girl goes in, and they don't think she has any chance, and then she's the one that houses it first, they're like, oh, and you even got beat by the girl, and I'm like, yeah, but I never lose, so it's one of them things where it's the impressive factor, and it's like a double duo, so we go in there and so yeah, but you have two scenarios. You either get people that are just astounded and completely blown away, or they're disgusted, because it depends on how we're eating it. We could be eating it kind of gross, So some people were turned off by that, where some people were like, "This is awesome," So
How often do you eat with your hands for a challenge? Because I know it can vary between like using utensils or some people just use their hands.
not as much as I used to. I used to do that for the speed aspect, but due to how harsh YouTube has gotten about, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but even on like Randy's videos, Randy Santel, they're like, if he opens his mouth and he's chewing, they'll actually blur that out so that you can't see the chewed food, because I have a feeling like they were demonetizing that. So it's kind of one of them things where we kind of cleaned it up a little bit only because we were having some demonetization issues. So we kind of got away from the hand chewing as much as possible and kind of cleaned it up a little bit, only because we were just, we're obviously trying to make money on YouTube, and trying to appeal to a wider audience. So by cleaning the technique up, I feel like it has definitely helped.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. Huh.
Oh yeah, it has definitely gotten a lot more complicated to do eating challenges and stuff on YouTube. Yep.
Have you ever considered starting your own website?
Yeah, I definitely thought about that. That was kind of one of them things that was in the back of my mind when we tried to launch E3. The other eating league that we were working on there, and that was really just a timing thing there. We launched that, and then COVID hit and everything fell out. I mean, we actually had eight contests under contract, for places that wanted to do contests, and when COVID hit and all the festivals stopped and you weren't allowed to go in public and etc. We lost all those, and then we just never gained back the traction that we thought we would. Because really, realistically, you look at it 5 years later, the world's still recovering from that. So
is E3 still a thing?
E3 still exists. E3, we still own E3, but we don't. We just kind of shelved it because we didn't know what to do with it at the time.
Do you think it'll ever make a comeback?
That I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of one of them things where we had a vision for it, and we kind of just let it sit, and now we're just busy with some other things. So it's kind of one of them things where I just don't know if it'll ever become a priority again.
So moving on to YouTube and future goals, do you plan to continue uploading your food adventures to YouTube? And what is one milestone that you hope to achieve with your channel?
I mean, ultimately, I'm gonna keep uploading for as long as I'm a competitive eater. Obviously, I might as well record the videos and make some money back on them. Plus, share things with the world. As far as adventures and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, a milestone would be getting that silver play button. Obviously, I'm at 60K now, and it'd be really awesome to be able to get to 100,000 and be able to at least get a play button before I call it quits.
Oh, is that when you get the silvers, when you hit 100K?
Yeah, you get 100K, you get a silver play button. Yep. And then you have to wait till 1 million to get a gold.
And what is one valuable lesson that you've learned from both competitive eating and then owning your own collision shop for 25 years?
Well, I would say my most valuable lesson I've learned is I would have to say always push yourself, always believe in yourself. Nothing's ever for certain, because there are definitely times in competitive eating where people will say, oh, like take this for example. Oh, if you and Molly show up, nobody else has a chance to win. That's not necessarily true. Anything can happen, and that was kind of how when I first started out, I always said the life lesson that I learned and the reason I got better, I competed against people that were better than me. And then ultimately that pushed me to want to be better, so I guess the most important lesson I would say from competitive eating and owning my own collision shop is always to invest in yourself, and the rest will follow.
It's very well said. And what is next for Killer Kennedy?
As far as on the competitive eating front, July is going to be a super, super busy month. We got Z Burger coming up. We have Zach's Hot Dogs, which is in the Carolinas. That's a $5,000 prize. So we're both gunning for that. I heard that Sandusky Donuts is going to come back this year, which is the one that has Dunkin' Donuts involved. That's usually in late October. I actually was one off of breaking the world record set by Molly 2 years ago. She set it at 69. I did 68. So I would like to at least tie that record or maybe break the record, only because I don't know if anybody has ever eaten 70 donuts in a contest before. I think that'd be super cool. I definitely like to break 50 in a hot dog contest again. Me, Molly, and Joey were the only 3 people to break 50 the year before last in any contest. So, that's kind of an elite group. Last year, Pat and James and Jeff and those guys, they all broke 50. And Nathan's. But the year prior to that, me and her and Joey were the only ones to break 50. And Nick too, if you count it before the controversy that ensued, he actually did break 50. So.
All right, and time for a bonus question. What celebrity would you like to competitively eat against?
Celebrity. As in competitive eating celebrity, or just celebrity as in general?
Just in general. Just one celebrity that you would just love to go against in like a hot dog eating contest or a donut eating contest.
Boy, that's a tough one. Boy, that's a brain teaser there. I mean, given my youth and childhood and my love for professional wrestling, I was always a big Hulk Hogan fan. I was an NWO fan. I was a Ric Flair fan, which was super cool because I got to meet Ric Flair again last night at that event, which was super cool. I got a picture with Ric Flair. I would have to still say Hulk Hogan, just because I was a Hulkamaniac growing up, and I always as a kid I liked wrestling and I liked movies, so. And I had movie stars that I looked up to, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, big action star of the '80s. He was, that was super big when I was a kid. So I would have to say either Arnold Schwarzenegger or Hulk Hogan.
See, I would pay to see that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be a spectacle. I mean, I don't think either of those guys are built to eat, so I think it'd be pretty lopsided. But it would still be entertaining to say the least.
And lastly, before we wrap it up, is there anything you'd like to say to anyone listening to this?
I guess the only thing I can really add to this whole thing is, if you aspire to do something, chase the dream, and never give up. If there's something, someone, or some dream you have, never give up on it, and just chase it, and it'll happen.
Very well said. And Dan, I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys for having me.
We'll have all of Dan Killer Kennedy's links on the YouTube description and everywhere else. And we appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.